Coming to you from New York City. Wait, we're supposed to be in Oxnard. Well, we're home for the KAX Oxnard, California wrap-up today on Ventriloquism Weekly. Hello, all you listeners. We are live on tape today, Ventriloquism Weekly. It is Tuesday, February 4th, 2014, and I am excited to be back in the dorm and ready to tell you all about KAX, the Kidabra Axtel combined mid-year conference for Kidabra. It was a fantastic time in Oxnard, California, had by everyone at the resort. We had so much fun, just chatting and learning and talking, and just it's indescribable, which is funny because the goal of this episode is to describe what you guys missed if you weren't there, or to help you relive the experience if you were there. Now, why am I not presenting something from KAX? Well, because it's actually a good thing why we don't have a guest or an interview from across the country for this week, because there's a wealth of material I need to sort through, I need to edit. I have a few ideas of things that I captured that I'd like to present to you, but I need to get certain permissions in order to do that, because I got permission to capture it. Now I have to have permission to pull it out of the archives, because like I mentioned last week, I wasn't just there for the podcast. I was there to archive it for Steve Axtel, and to put something together for the International Ventriloquist Society. So when I told them I'd be recording for the archives, I keep to my word, and unless they say, yes, you can release this or that, or unless Mark Daniels says, no, we want to keep that lecture just for the attendees, or whatever, or that experience just for the attendees, we will, not that I would actually not release full lectures. I'm doing this live to tape. I'm not trying to do edits or anything. I don't think I'd release full lectures, but discussions and stuff that were had, I'd want to get those certain permissions. So there's just a wealth of material to sort through to give to you. One thing that I know I am going to release probably in two parts, and we're probably going to start it next week, is the Jay Johnson interview, which I was fortunate enough and honored enough to do it. So thank you, Jay. Thank you, Steve Axtel. Thank you, Mark Daniel, for saying, yeah, 19-year-old, get on stage. Come ask the questions. So I very much appreciate it, and I'm very honored to have gotten to do that. And I cleared it with everyone involved, and I will be able to present that to you as a podcast. And that's one of the things that I have to edit down and really make it suitable for this sort of format. Not that I will edit any of the content, but I'll have to put references into what we're referring to and give you links to certain clips and stuff. So that compiling that multimedia experience to put the audio for the podcast to would be will take a bit of time. Here's an example. I presented, Jay let me present a clip from one of his lesser-known television shows called Broken Badges. Well, I edited down the clip, and we presented it. Well, it's so funny, and we talk about it. I don't want to remove it from the discussion when I'm editing it, so I want to put that stuff on YouTube to give it to you in the description, so you can go and see the clip that we're referring to, as an example of what I mean about editing and stuff. So that's what you have to look forward to. And also, I almost forgot. Sorry, John. I did an interview with Kimmo at the convention. John Kimmons from the UK. He's our first guest from across the pond, and I'm so excited. Our first guest from another continent. I can't say another country because we did have Neil Bacon on a few months ago, but I'm excited to present to you the lecture with John Kimmons, and that'll be in a few weeks after the Jay interview, which I have been promising you guys since I first announced it. So we'll get to Jay next week, probably the week after, and in a couple weeks we'll be hearing from John Kimmons, and then that'll actually take us to the end of February, beginning of March, and so February is KAX month here at Ventriloquism Weekly, just because of the wealth of material we have. So a wrap up for what you guys missed. It was great. There were so many people there. It was great to see faces I haven't seen since Vent Haven. It was great to meet new faces. And people were like, "Oh, you're the kid with the podcast." I was like, "Yeah, you know that. Okay, you listen. Those numbers aren't a fluke." It's it was your words humbled me, and I want to say that publicly because I do this for you guys. So the compliments you've given me, the comments about watching, I take in stride, and they humble me. So thank you so very much. The conference, well, it's indescribable, as I was saying earlier. It was such a mishmash. Is that the word? Of family entertainers. It wasn't just kid show performers, and it wasn't adult performers. It wasn't, performers that work off color or blue, as it's called. It was really, if you want to entertain families of all ages, this was the conference for you. And it will be again in 2015. They're going to do it again. And I'm so excited for next year. The details for that, obviously, we're going to wait a while for that. The One of the things that stood out to me was having Mark Wilson, Renee, and Poppin' Fresh, the Pillsbury Doughboy, more commonly known as the Pillsbury Doughboy, the puppets from the old commercials in the 70s, which Mark Wilson appeared in, and Renee created the little Doughboy puppets. Well, the puppet was there, and lunchtime on Saturday, Renee, Mark Wilson, and the Poppin' Fresh puppet, they were sitting at the table, and you got the opportunity to have a photo op with Renee, Mark, and the puppet. Once in a lifetime. I don't think that'll ever happen again for various reasons, not necessarily morbid ones. I'm not going there, but just timing, just timing, and it was great. It was beautiful. Those pictures, I didn't. I was tied up with getting some recording done that I didn't get a chance to go over there, but seeing the pictures that Steve Axtell is posting on social media, they all had a blast over there in the dealer's rooms with Poppin' Fresh. The lecturers were Barry Mitchell. He presented his Bag o' Wow lecture, which is, well, if you don't have the DVD, I'm going to plug Barry. If you don't have the DVD, get the DVD because it's magic you could do out of a gift bag you can buy at the dollar store. There's nothing better. There really isn't. Who cares about the expensive props or this? No, just take a look at that. Make that $20, $30, whatever it is, investment. Get the DVD, and you'll learn some really inexpensive yet effective magic. Really cool. Ken Scott, another lecture. Ken Scott did something I'd only seen done one other time at another convention, which is he presented a kid show and then he lectured about the kid show he just performed. And I wish every convention could do that every year because I know it logistically it's can be trouble to pull off, and that's why it's only done every so often. But it was brilliant. It was brilliant to watch them work because we could get together and we could have lectures on theory, on creating and getting creative. But to see it put to work and to see the kids respond to it, that is a lesson in and of itself. You're like, oh, well, do I have to sit through the kid show? Yes, because you're the kid show performer. So why sit? You might ask yourself, do I have to sit through the another performer's kid show? Because you're going to learn, and it was just brilliant. I'm going to use some of the same adjectives because I'm not the most. I don't have the most diverse vocabulary, but I mean when it comes to these kinds of adjectives. But I really enjoyed getting to watch Ken work and then explain how he works. Going out of order, just as it's off the top of my head. No offense to anybody who lectured. Dave Cox. Dave Cox stood in for an absent Taylor Mason who had a family emergency. Dave Cox is an actor, a magician, and an improv artist, and he came in and he did a workshop on improv. And he talked about how when Ken Scott saw the lecture the first time, walked to him, he said, you know what, this is great, but what does it have to do with kid show magic? And he said everything. And so he did a workshop, not unlike one that I had last semester in some of my acting classes, where they pushed the chairs aside, got up, and started improvising, and then that's all it was. And how he brought it home was, you got to expect the unexpected, and so that really resonated. And I'm trying to explain what CAX was without giving too much away, but you really, an improv lecture at a kids show and family entertainers conference really stood out because we don't think of other art forms, and we have to. And I think that's one of the main things that CAX did, because it wasn't just the kid show magician convention or the kid show convention or the ventriloquist convention or the big blowout magician convention. There were balloon artists. There were, you name it, they were there. Storytellers. Annie Banani was there, and one of her things that stood out was, don't just twist the balloons. You know, make it interesting. And that goes to the essence of CAX, is we all learn from each other. If you don't balloon twist, but you do something that may seem mundane, well, how do you make it not mundane? So CAX was a brilliant experience. And I got to meet somebody who has been an influence to me for many, many years, uh, because it was one of the first books I ever got in magic. Uh, because it was available at Barnes and Nobles, and now that the Barnes and Noble, and now that I do magic, I look at that book and I say, why is this available to the public? This is genius, and I know why it's available to the public, because you speak to the man for 2 minutes, and you understand why he would want to have this available and easily accessible. The complete course in magic by the one and only Mark Wilson. And Friday afternoon over lunch, there was a real treat of Mark and Nani. They came. They'd been in the dealer's room. You could walk to say hi to them. They came and they just had a conversation on stage about their career, and it was brilliant. And my personal tie to this, if I may go on the ego trip, and these are the kinds of stories you will have if you go to CAX next year. So, hoping this excites you. Uh, I'm sitting, I'm eating my lunch in the lecture hall in the front row, sitting by the screen. And on the screen, in order to prepare for, because they gave about 30 minutes to set up, in order to prepare for the lecture, um, they were playing the pilot episode of the Magic Land of Alakazam, which at the time wasn't quite called that yet, but it was this great episode. Now I'm just sitting there, I'm enthralled in it because I'd never seen, except for a few clips, I had never seen the show before. So this is my introduction to it, and I'm watching it, and I start to hear the shuffling of a raincoat. I look to my left, headed right for me, Mark Wilson. And as he's approaching, my eyes get wide. I think I stand up, and he goes, I just want to be near the guy on the TV. And he plops right down next to me and leans into me and starts explaining about the show, uh, and the tricks we're seeing. That'll stick with me forever. Um, what else? What else? Getting to interview Jay was, of course, phenomenal. Um, what else about that convention? Because there's just so much. I want to keep this kind of on time here, but there's just so many cool things that you get to do. Oh, the Axtel tour. Axtel tour, and that's another thing that pulls into what are we going to present with Ventriloquism Weekly. There will be one day upcoming in a couple months or so, because I have to wade through the footage. Maybe not, maybe even a month, where we won't have a podcast. I'll just put this little audio together and say, hey guys, click the link below, and the podcast for the week will be a tour of the Axtel Studios, because I got a really unique inside look. That studio, if you've ever seen the movie Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, first off, Steve Axtell is Willy Wonka and Walt Disney rolled into one. And yes, I am quoting his little biography on the CAX webpage, but it's true. And he's a super nice guy on top of all of that. My shuttle was late getting to the studio for the first day. We were all going to meet up to have a rehearsal for that night. And they just waited for me after the tour. And I appreciate the patience. Thanking him now, again. But here I go getting off topic. So I do the tour at some point in the weekend and get the footage. And you're in this studio, and it really is akin to being in the chocolate factory in the Willy Wonka movie because there's nothing anywhere else like it. And it's just in an industrial park. If you didn't know who Steve Axtell was, if you didn't know that that's what it was, it's just a warehouse. You wouldn't, and I don't mean to diminish all the cool things and all the things that happen in there, but I mean literally the building itself is just a warehouse in an industrial park. So that's one of the experiences I hope he does again next year for those of you that couldn't go or those of you that could, but your flight got in late and you couldn't make one of the tours. Um, it was a fantastic, amazing thing to see. And I remember getting my first puppet way back in middle school. My first puppet was the Learning Vern, the Vinyl Vern, um, and the uh, Bird Arm illusion. And at that time, I had seen pictures of the studio and all that different stuff. And yeah, to be there, it was one of those things like, I'll get there in 40 years. No, I got there, what, 10, not even 10 years later. Um, what was it, eighth grade? Yeah, I'm not good at math. So, but just to get there just a few years later, really cool. So you really get to see, for those of us that really respect Axtell uses products, to see where the mastermind creates is brilliant. So all in all, KAX as a convention, go to it. And I'll even say, and I won't name any other conventions because I don't want to upset anybody who runs any other conventions, but we all know that we choose, we say, okay, I'm going to go to this convention this year, this convention next year, this convention, this convention the following, and then back to this convention that next year. Well, this convention is worthy enough to put in your rotation. It's not a one-off, it's not a day convention. It is the next big thing in entertainers conventions. And it's just going to grow from where it was this year. And to be in on the ground floor with it, to cover it, to have been able to archive it for Steve Axtell, Mark Daniel, and everybody at KAX, that's a thrill. That's an honor to say, hey, come hook up, plug in, capture it. And to get to talk to the people there and to capture their responses um, is just priceless. So you will get something from this. I guarantee you. I guarantee whether you do balloons, you do storytelling, you do ventriloquism, you do magic, whatever you do, if you do a combination of it, you'll get something from it. And I'm not trying to act as a promo. I learned so much. And I was there to work. I can't even imagine being there just to enjoy yourself and learn. You learn so much more. You really take away everything. So go to it next year. It's worthy to put in that rotation of saying, I'll go to this convention this year, this convention the next, and then this convention the next. This is worthy enough to go to, and then you get to go to say you were in the beginning first few conferences of it. It was a genius idea to put it together. It was creatively the next step to say, okay, there's the specialized. Let's generalize, but keep it special. And it was really cool for any and all family entertainers. Go to it, and what's unique about it is it's at a resort, so you get that vacation time too. There are breaks. You don't have to attend any late night sessions. You could go chill by the pool at lunch. You could go to the beach, which is a quarter mile away. It's right out the back of the hotel. You see it from your room. It's incredible. Um, or you saw it from your room this year. So please go to it next year, see for yourself, and stay tuned here to Ventriloquism Weekly because we will be bringing you just a taste of the KAX conference. I had a blast. Something I'll never forget. So thank you again to all involved. Thank you to you listeners. And yeah, that's it. I will see you next week with the Jay Johnson interview live from KAX. For Ventriloquism Weekly, I'm Matt Bailey.